Today's topic of conversation is future drivers, in particular Red Bull Juniors. We're starting a brand new series here on the channel today. We're looking at the different teams. We're looking at Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, Renault and McLaren, seeing their future drivers, seeing who's in their young driver academies and seeing potential future Formula One drivers. Obviously, some academies are bigger than others, and Red Bull, who we're starting the series with today, is quite a big one. So we can't go through every single driver, and some drivers are so young, they've only done 1 or 2 championships in their entire career. So it's impossible to try and predict whether they'll get to Formula One or how their career is going to pan out. Today, we're going to be doing 5 drivers for Red Bull, and that's my target for most of the teams, but some teams like McLaren aren't going to offer themselves up to doing 5 drivers. So we're just going to do it on a case-by-case basis, but generally we're going to aim for that 10-15 minute mark that we usually do on the channel. There's no denying, Red Bull at the moment are gun-ho with their driver changes, and with Sebastian Vettel out of the picture, with Daniel Ricciardo out the picture, Brendan Hartley has left. If Max Verstappen leaves in a couple of years' time, who is going to put bums on seats in both Toro Rosso and Red Bull? So we're going to start this list with a couple of drivers I think are the closest to Formula One. We're starting, as you can see on screen, with Yuri VIPS, the Estonian born in 2002, is currently in Formula 3 racing with a Red Bull livery. He is 19 years old and currently sits in P2 in the championship. As you can also see on screen, his previous racing history is Italian F4 in 2016. He was first place out of all of the rookies in that championship. He then went on to win the ADAC F4 championship. To be honest with you, never heard of that before. He then went into Formula 3 in 2018, where he finished 4th overall in his rookie season. He is now in his 2nd season in Formula 3, 2nd place behind Robert Schwartzman. It's been a fairly consistent start for VIPS this season. He's had 2 races where he has scored no points at all. Both of those races have come in the 2nd race of a particular weekend, both in France and in Silverstone a couple of weekends ago. He's got 2 race victories, first in Austria and at Silverstone a couple of weekends ago. But he's also picked up double points finishes in both Spain and in Hungary, and sits just 12 points behind a championship lead. I think for VIPS, as I said, him and the next driver we're going to talk about, these are the 2 closest to a Red Bull seat. But as you can see, Formula 3, this is still quite a jump away. How the current system works is the only way VIPS is going to be able to jump in a Toro Rosso next year is if he wins F3, or else it's very unlikely he's going to be able to amass enough super license points to get to Formula 1. So realistically, I see next season VIPS going to Formula 2, and that's where most drivers are make or break. Then we will see if he's ready for Formula 1. But I think in his 1 and a bit seasons of Formula 3, he's impressed. He's impressed me quite well, has Yuri VIPS, and I think he's got a good chance of making it to the Formula 1 grid in the next 4 or 5 years. Next driver, arguably the most high-profile driver on this list. Heads up, Dan Ticktum is not on the list. Dan Ticktum, just a quick note on him, was in the Red Bull Young Driver Programme, was lining up to be in Formula 2 this year, never quite amassed, went to Japanese Super Formula, got dropped from the Red Bull programme, and in his place for Japanese Super Formula came this man, Patricia Ochoa. Racing history, a little bit different. The Mexican, who's 20 years old, did a lot of his racing over in the States, in the Pro Mazda Championship, 6th in 2015, 2nd in 2016. And then did a prototype series in 2017, and last year in Indy Lights finished 1st overall, getting promoted to official IndyCar at the beginning of the 2019 season, but left only a few races in with this Red Bull deal. Did a couple of races in Formula 2. I think it was just 1 weekend in Austria, I believe it was, at the Red Bull Ring, and now is over in Japanese Super Formula for the remainder of the season. But I imagine we'll be trying to find a way into Formula 2 for next season, a little bit like we just spoke about with Yuri VIPS. Award, especially in IndyCar, seem to have this pure talent that a team like Red Bull would love to snatch up. That's exactly what they did. I think he needs to prove himself in Formula 2 I think he did well in IndyCar, but at the moment, that's not enough. He did that one race, or what race weekend in Formula 2, was okay, and the fact that he just jumped into a car for one weekend, I think performed as you would expect, but I think we need to see him in more races, more consistently, and I think, yeah, he's definitely one of those drivers that's really trying to be lined up now sensibly for a Formula 1 seat. And don't forget, Gasly came from Japanese Super Formula into Formula 1, but he also was GP2 champion at the time as well. Third driver, and with the last three drivers, I think are a little bit further away. A couple of them in Formula 3 as well as Yuri VIPS. First one, Liam Lawson. Hailing from New Zealand, the 17-year-old, so far in his career, it's been very similar to the junior career of Lando Norris, winning every championship in his rookie year. So far he's performed in Formula First, Formula Ford, Formula 3, Formula 3 Asia and the Toyota Racing Series. This man looks really impressive. Really seems to be applying his trade perfectly in every season he's been in. As you can see on screen, there's some of the different categories he's been in, because a lot of these juniors, they don't just do one series in each championship, so it's a little bit varied. But on the official Red Bull site, they have quoted that he's won every championship he's been in. But also, as you can see, you read into those stats a little bit differently. Then it works out that he's been first, but he's been the first rookie in some occasions. However, he has been quick. It's his first year this season in Formula 3. He's 10th currently, which actually I don't think's dreadful for his first year in Europe. I mean, that's a big change for any person moving from Australia to come to Europe to race. But to be 10th, and to be in front of drivers such as David Beckman, Nikko Carrie is another one who used to be a Red Bull young driver, I think it's a pretty strong performance, to be honest with you. He's only scored 22 points. He had a double points finish in Silverstone, no points in Hungary. But with 6 rounds to go, I'm really interested to see how Liam is going to be able to continue with the rest of the year and how he's going to carry that through into 2020. Is this going to be a driver who could make an early switch to Formula 2? I don't think so. I think he's definitely one of those drivers that should give it another season, a little bit like Yuri VIPS, and really try and push on for the next year. Driver number 4, and apologies, pronunciation with this one a little bit different. Yuki Tanoda is what I'm going to go with, the Japanese driver, 19 years old, our third driver on this list, currently in FIA Formula 3. So in Formula 3 this year, we've got a hell of a lot of Red Bull young drivers, a hell of a lot of Ferrari young drivers. There really are some impressive talent in that championship this year, and if you haven't catched any races, I definitely would recommend it if you have the time. They've been very, very high quality. That being said, Yuki has a really impressive junior career so far. 2016, does 2 races, round 11 and round 12 of Japanese F4, finishes 2nd and 4th in those 2 races, ends up 16th overall in the championship, but those 2 races were enough to give him a full season drive in 2017 in Japanese F4, sorry, finishes 3rd overall in his first full season, does another season, a second full season, finishes 1st overall in Japanese F4, driving for a Honda-powered team. Yes, something to bear in mind. He's now in FIA Formula 3, just like Yuri VIPS, just like Liam Lawson. He's 2 places behind Liam Lawson, in 12th place at the moment, but just like Lawson is in front of Nikko Carrie. That's very impressive, considering Carrie's speed, and considering at a time Carrie was a driver, well, touted for Formula 1, never quite got there, had a couple of races in Formula 2, but seems to have found his home in Formula 3, is one of the more experienced drivers out there. And Tanoda, in his first season, to be in front, and a little bit like I said with Lawson, his first year in Europe, making that huge change, social and cultural change in his life, to come over to Europe and perform as well as he has in his first season is impressive. But I think, just like Lawson, needs a couple of years under his belt before we can really see a Formula 1 charge. But that Honda link definitely is a strong one with Yuki. And our final driver we're going to be having a little look at today is Ozzie Jack. I think I'm saying that right, but I could be wrong there again. So if anyone is more experienced with pronunciation than me, let me know in the comments below. But the 16-year-old Ozzie, the youngest man on our list. Not the youngest driver in the Red Bull Academy, but on our list, he is the youngest. Daniel Ricciardo's heir? Question mark. Well, looking at his junior career so far, it's been pretty plain sailing for him. Australian Karting Championship from his first overall back in 2016 when he was 13 years old. As you can see, it's not been, well, an illustrious career so far because it's only just starting. He's only 16 years old, but CIK finished third overall in 2017, and British S4 finished fifth overall last season when he was 15 years old. Currently now he's doing a season in Asian F3 and a few different bits and bobs, but Jack looks quick. Like we've said with all of these drivers, he's doing Euro Formula Open as well this year, so nothing too set in stone just yet, and I think that's definitely something he and Red Bull are going to have to look into, whether he does a full season of British F4 again, whether he does Formula 3, which I think will be most likely next season. That's really what they're going to be looking at. He is the son of 5 times motorcycle champion, I think it is, Mick Doohan, so that might help if you really want to know, but finishing last year in British F3, 3 race victories, got the rookie title. I think there's proof there that he could be a star of the future. But again, all of these drivers, we're just sort of throwing names at you, giving them a little bit of history and hopefully seeing how their career pans out. That was Red Bull today. I want to know what team you want to see next and which one of these drivers you think is going to make it to Formula 1. If you haven't subscribed and you're new around here, feel free to do so. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.